I don't want no oil, a spoil in my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things a-creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes! Good morning, Toledo. Hi, this is Joe DeMar, and for the next hour, I'm going to be your host here on For a Green Future. For a Green Future is a program where we talk about the environment, ecology, and the issues that affect you, your health, your family, your wallet, and we do it from an environmental and ecological perspective. I am the political director of the Ohio Green Party, but on this program, I'm not talking for the Ohio Green Party. I'm talking only for myself, and that's the same for all my guests and everyone who calls in. And we have a very special guest in the studio today. Markie Miller's with us. Hi, Markie.
Hi, thank you for having me back.
Thanks for coming. And we are here, which is kind of rare for environmentalists these days. We're celebrating a victory. So many times in environmental issues we are defending, like Trump proposed hunting the grizzly bears in Yellowstone, and we fought that and we stopped him, which is great that we stopped him, but it's not really what you'd call a victory. It's a successful defense. People lose sight of that these successfully stopping the Republicans and Trump and the people who want to destroy our environment, stopping them from destroying things is essential. It's a necessity, but it's not really a victory. It's a defense. And so here in Toledo, Ohio, we had a rare advancement in environmental terms. We passed the Lake Erie Bill of Rights this past week, and we've gotten attention from the entire world. Isn't that right, Markie?
Yeah, all over. We're getting calls from all across the country. It's crazy.
Yeah, and so this is what I would classify as an actual victory. So we're going to be talking with Markie when we open up the phone lines at 8:15, and please call in at 866-240-1065. That's 866-240-1065. This is the best show in the Toledo area, but it does get better every time you call. So, and you have here an opportunity to speak personally with one of the people that just put Toledo, Ohio on the worldwide map. So, and she'll answer your questions about the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. What does it really mean? What compared to those commercials that we all heard during the run-up to the election, and which most of you didn't buy because, the measure did pass despite all the negative and, misleading advertising. So you have a chance to talk to one of the principals involved. So please take advantage of it when we open up the phone lines at 8:15. Then we're going to talk with Markie, and then we're going to have some ads from our sponsors near the bottom of the hour. We are going to be talking about some things after the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk about this proposed bailout for Davis-Besse. And, of course, we have our letter from the future coming up. Marie I., my great-great-granddaughter, once again, very dependable. She sent me a letter, and there was this flash of photons next to my bed this morning, and there's the letter from the year 2299. So that's something to look forward to. And, of course, once again, I'd like to urge you guys to call in this morning. And this morning, I don't know if you were listening last week, but last week when I was driving in, I missed every light. It took me like 10, 15 minutes longer than usual. This morning, I made every light. It was bizarre. I could not miss a light. It was I got here almost 15 minutes earlier than I expected to, which was great. And I did see deer coming in this morning. Also, I saw a buck and 2 does. Actually, it was really cool. And so, it's just a reminder that these things happen. That sometimes you make every light, sometimes you miss every light. But life, that's all part of life. And so, people who are saying things like, "We can't have a nuclear accident; the odds against it are just astronomical." Well, sometimes things that the odds are against do happen. And one thing that I wanted to talk about today, before we get into the main part of the show, this time of the year is kind of poignant for me because 2 years ago, this past week, I was actually at Standing Rock in North Dakota. I was there, and there were about 10,000 people there protesting the pipeline construction for the DAPL, Dakota Access Pipeline Project. And it was an amazing thing. 10,000 people went out into some of the harshest climate, the harshest environments in North America in the wintertime. I've been there. You do not want to be on the plains of North Dakota in the middle of the winter, but these 10,000 people were there because they were fighting for our future. They were fighting to try to stop this pipeline and protect the future generations, both from the immediate damage that the pipeline would do in terms of environmental pollution, and from the effects that the carbon that this pipeline is going to release into the atmosphere is going to have. Right after they forced the pipeline through, they had a break in this pipeline, and they had a spill, and everything that the people who were fighting the pipeline said came to pass. That a huge area of the plain was polluted. The people who build these things constantly tell us the odds, nothing's going to happen. Things are going to be fine. We've got so many safeguards. But one thing that if you really are in engineering, or I was a machinist for 10 years, you do know that despite the best plans and the most careful backups, sometimes the odds do go the wrong way, and things do break and things do spill, which is why we need to shut down things like nuclear power plants immediately, because those are literally accidents waiting to happen. And so that was an amazing experience being at Standing Rock. I was only there for about 5 days, literally the last 5 days of the encampment, and I got to see the encampment getting broken up, and it was just heartbreaking to see this wonderful, beautiful thing just being destroyed by the state. They sent in state troopers. The state of Ohio actually spent a couple million sending Ohio state troopers to North Dakota to help break up that protest, which still boggles my mind. But so that was heartbreaking. But then I do also have in my memory, I was a part of the People's Climate March, which was back a couple years ago in New York City, where 400,000 people took to the streets, and they were demanding action on climate change. They were demanding that we stop putting carbon into the air. And I don't know if you've ever been a part of anything like that, but you should try to experience that at least once in your life. It's indescribable to be surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people who are there for a purpose, who, they're not just there to cheer for cheering's sake. They're there for a purpose. They want to protect the environment. They want to protect the green future and our future generations. And I was in the parade route there. We were in the non-nuclear section, because all the environmental groups were represented there, and we all supported each other. And the parade was supposed to start at noon. We were waiting and waiting. It was like 12:30, 1 o'clock. We're like, why aren't we moving? We're just standing here. Then I got a text from a friend whose daughter lived in New York City. It turned out that the parade had started on time. It's just there were so many of us that it took more than an hour for our part of the parade to start marching. It was just incredible. And we, the people at Standing Rock and the people at that march were actually representing the opinion of the majority of Americans. Depending on the poll, anywhere from 60 to 80% of Americans understand and believe and feel that we need to take action on the climate. We need to start taking carbon out of our cycles. We need to get off of the fossil fuels. We need to switch to wind and solar. We need to stop using plastic for things like single-use plastic, like plastic bags. We understand this. The people understand this, and we want the change, and we're willing to change. And those of us who can are making the change. There's more solar installations going up every day. People are insulating their houses. People are buying, Priuses. They're buying cars that get good gas mileage. The problem is our leaders, our quote-unquote political leaders, the ones that are saying, don't change, just take the easy route. They're the ones that are making it possible to keep going in the wrong direction, even as the majority of the people want to go in the correct direction, in the right direction. And in my book, that's not leadership. If you're telling people, don't do what's necessary to save yourselves, that's not leadership. If you're telling people, just keep doing it the way you've been doing it, even though it's destroying the environment, that's not leadership. Here on For a Green Future, we like to emphasize that once we're in a green future, it's actually going to be better. You're going to be more comfortable. You're going to be healthier. You're going to have more money. You're going to be able to enjoy life more at a green future. But we are still saying you have to take action to get to that green future, because it's not just going to happen. It's very clear that our politics and our policies, our quote unquote political leaders at this point, the ones that are in office right now, will not take us there. And one illustration I saw of that as I drove in this morning were the little white lines on the road from the brine. The brine trucks had been by. They're expecting ice, and so they already proactively went out and put salt water on the roads. That right now in front of the Ohio legislature is a law that would allow fracking waste to be used as brine on roads. Now, fracking waste is highly toxic. It contains over 200 chemicals. Many of them aren't revealed to the public because the ingredients in fracking waste are proprietary. And they're exempt from most environmental laws, thanks to the Republicans who control the federal legislature. And just the idea that our representatives in Columbus, the ones that are supposed to be representing us, are trying to pass a law that would allow frackers to spray literally radioactive poison on the road in front of your house, that to me shows that they care more about money, the money that they're getting from the fracking industry, the donations that they're getting from the fracking companies. They care more about that than you. One thing, though, that politicians do care more about than money is political power. And they're willing to give up some money in order to keep their power. But what happened here in Toledo this past week with the Lake Erie Bill of Rights is that the people of the city of Toledo literally shook the pillars of that power. They went directly to the people. They bypassed the legislature and the elected city government, because the elected officials were opposed to the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. Once again, the same way that the Republican elected officials are opposed to having safe brine being sprayed on your road. They want radioactive, contaminated brine sprayed in front of your house. So the people went directly, or the people took power directly, and that taking direct political power shakes the very foundation of this corrupt institution which has become the Ohio state government. So anyway, one of the people who were out there shaking those pillars this past week, we have with us in the studio Markie Miller. And please, we're going to open up the phone lines now, and please call in at 866-240-1065. That's 866-240-1065. So Markie, how was it out there this past week shaking those pillars?
I've never felt better. Yeah, I mean, everything you're saying, it's reminding me of the last 2 years, and more specifically the last couple months since we turned in our signatures, of being told no, no, no. And those no's are coming from people in positions of power and authority. And, those are the regulatory agencies and our elected officials. And then we put it to the people, and the people said yes. And that, I just feel like that's such a profound thing, that let the people decide what they want. If we're going to have state laws that try to manage what we're exposed to, we should be able to go a little more strict on those rules if we want. If that's going to be up to what happens to our quality of life, the health of the environment that we have to live in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that there's a big legislative push, mostly from the Republicans, but Democrats do jump onto these things to say that, okay, we're going to set this federal or this state standard, and then we're going to say nobody can go better than this standard. We're going to say
yeah, and it's kind of weird because you have the federal level and the state can go more strict. So we say, well, why can't local go a little bit more? I mean, if we want to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And I think that's what we wanted to do here. But I also think people were just tired of the inaction that they were seeing. There weren't alternative options to vote for. And there haven't really been. No one's come to this town to say, well, what do you guys think about this? We just get told our water rates are going to go up, and we have to fund more treatment plants and more. Here's how much chlorine we purchased this year. And I think people are seeing that they are more and more powerless when it comes to these issues.
Now, people around the world have sat up and paid attention to Toledo this past week. Have you gotten a lot of interest from other areas of the world?
Oh yeah. I got a call last week that said, "Do you speak French by any chance? Because we'd like to do this interview." And no, unfortunately, I don't think anyone in our group speaks French. So we were in Le Monde in France, and then that story got picked up to a publication in Italy, and talking to BBC London, and there's The Guardian in the UK. I mean, it's gone all over. And then there's publications that we don't talk to, but they pick up the story, and you just see it spread all over, and it's really cool.
Yeah. So kudos Toledo for doing
Thank you,
something.
Toledo.
Yes, for doing something brave, stepping out of the norm, and
Absolutely
striking a blow for the environment. So what does this mean in terms of, now that this is going into the city charter, let's say somebody sees the lake being harmed in some way. How can they use this new Bill of Rights to attack that problem?
It would have to go through civil court here in Toledo, and the same with anything. You would need to have you'd need to do your research. You'd need to have actual evidence and have legal representation. I mean, it's not going to just be this free for all where I can go file a report and then somebody has to stop everything. It's the same process. We didn't change any of that the legal process, but before you'd have to go through the regulatory agency. So we're able to bypass that part. But use the same court systems that we have here locally to us. So I don't think it's going to be easy to use it. But we have a new resource in our legal toolbox that we get to use.
In our arsenal. That's great. Yeah, and so if someone were to take advantage of it, they would go representing Lake Erie. They would file on behalf of Lake Erie.
Yes, yeah. So if I wanted to do something, it would be Lake Erie versus whatever entity or situation I want to address, and not Markie Miller. And if I won, or if Lake Erie won, then it would be, I wouldn't have any financial gain from that at all. The expense would all be mine. I'd have to be willing to pay for it. But anything rewarded would go to a fund that has to fix whatever damage was caused.
Okay, so the farmers down, upstream from the lake, mostly on the Maumee, we've all known for a while that it's runoff from those farms that are contributing to the algal blooms. So they've been, they were putting out these scare ads saying that they're going to, it's going to increase your cost of food. And I think that they're coming at it from the wrong direction. I mean, they should be thinking to themselves, how can I prevent this damage to Lake Erie that I'm doing? Instead, they're trying to keep us from putting in policies in place that would protect the lake. And so far, they've been successful because they've got a very powerful political entity in the Farm Bureau.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, that hurts all of us. And it, of course, as your group points out, it literally hurts Lake Erie too. So this is kind of an end run around that.
Yeah. And, I think it comes down to who's going to be accountable for this. And, no one in our group was anti-farmer. We understand the importance of that system. But it's these larger scale industrialized complexes and that system that we created that we need to say, if you're going to do that, then you have to be willing to take on the mess, and you have to be, they should be accountable to that. And I think that that's just something we've for too long have avoided because we don't want to, we don't want to look anti-farming, and but I don't think we can continue to go on that way. Something has to happen.
I think you're right, and I'd particularly like to invite any farmers, because I know that in Wood County a lot of dials are tuned to 106.5, the ticket, because this is normally, most of the programming here is sports, and don't worry, sports will be coming back as soon as the show is over at 9 o'clock. Mick Gonzalez, The Cheap Seats, a great sports show, and you can go, you'll be going back to sports soon. But the people who are in Wood County, some of these farmers in the surrounding counties that fought this, here's a chance for you to call in and talk directly to one of the principals. And, I know you're afraid that this is going to hurt your farming business, but it's always best to face your fears. Here's a chance to face one of the people that helped push this through in Toledo. And usually when you face your fears, you find out they're not as bad as you made them out to be in your mind. And so here's, please call in 866-240-1065, 866-240-1065. Did you disagree with the Lake Erie Bill of Rights? And if so, why? And if so, what are you afraid of? And we can walk you through it. Markie and I can help you face your fear and overcome them. And we can all move towards that greener world.
Right.
So, Markie, how did it feel? I mean, there was a concentrated group of people that worked on this. About how many people would you say was the core? What happened after it passed?
We had probably like 10 or 12 core people, and they would fluctuate a little bit throughout those 2 years, but they were the ones who met every week and collected hundreds of signatures. I know we had one guy in our group collect, I think, like 1,600. I mean, just him alone. And wow. I think I had 800. I mean, and people who really put a lot of energy and time into this. So when we were going back and forth, like, oh, there's no way we can win, to maybe we have a chance. So I know I went out to the polling locations and I was talking to people walking in and handing out flyers, things like that, and was getting a lot of support. I thought, well, this looks good. This is, I was nervous to come out here because you never know with an election. You just have to let it, let things fall where they may. And when those first results started to come in, I know it was just tears instantly. Everybody was just, we were so happy, we were so overwhelmed, but it was just seeing a result from your work, and in grassroots activism, you don't always get those opportunities. It's usually a lot more work than reward sometimes. So
True.
But everyone just crying and dancing and smiling and crying some more. It was very overwhelming, very emotional.
Well, that's great. That's a great story. And when you say back and forth over the last 2 years and not sure if it was going to pass or not, I mean, you're really talking, sometimes it was kicked completely off the ballot. Sometimes it was put on. That was a saga.
Absolutely. And, so I'm part of the Ohio Community Rights Network. It's just another little volunteer board, and it has people from other communities throughout the state who are working on similar initiatives. And when I joined at the start, really didn't know the kind of work that had been in this. And now here I'm sitting with people who have tried 3, 4, 8 times in their community to do what Toledo did. So, for me, it was a recognition of the people who had worked so hard to set that stage. And then that we had opened that door. And, not just for groups coming up in the future, but for the communities who have been working, who gave us that leg up. Hopefully in return, we can help them continue, if they want to try again. Because we had the mindset that win or lose, we won.
Right.
We've come so far. We put this idea out there, and that we'll do it again if we have to. And of course, that was a very daunting feeling to have looming over you that, oh man, we're going to have to do all this work again. But, I think recognizing all the communities working on this, and hopefully that this can help give the community rights movement and the rights of nature movement a little more momentum. Okay.
Well, congratulations on it. It's a great victory, and not just for Toledoans. And again, congratulations, Toledo, on making this step forward to a green future. That's kind of amazing. I have to admit, I was not expecting it to pass.
A tiny bit of me was really surprised, but just because of my experience with other communities who were just like, well, preparing me all the time, saying, now when you go to the Board of Elections meeting, don't be surprised if there's a protester. And, and there was. So they were telling me what to expect the whole time. So it was just really incredible to get that win.
All right. That's great. Well, Markie is going to be with us for a bit longer, and please call in at 866-240-1065 with any questions you have for her, or any comments. Were you one of the people who helped put this on the ballot? Were you one of the 10,000 residents of the city of Toledo who signed this petition? Did you get what you expected? Are you happy that this passed, or are you having buyer's remorse? Call us at 866-240-1065, and we'll talk about it. But right now, since it's the bottom of the hour, and this is a commercial radio program, where I have to do some sponsorships, and I'm happy to do it because we really appreciate our sponsors and helping them. They help us stay on the air and talk to you about these issues. So our first sponsor is DeMar Consulting. DeMar Consulting is a computer consulting business. The difference with DeMar Consulting is that they will come to your home and help you with your personal PC. A lot of people are having trouble. Maybe you've got an old computer with an old operating system. It's starting to fail. DeMar Consulting will help you pick out a new computer, and they'll tailor a computer, and they can also build new computers, and they can tailor these computers to your needs. So if you're somebody who all you ever do is get on and you check your email and maybe play some solitaire, and that's it, you don't need a massive computer with huge graphics cards that can, do multiplayer games at top speed. You could probably get a computer that only costs a few $100s and will suit your needs perfectly. DeMar Consulting will help you design and pick out the computer that's best for your needs. And they'll also help fix your computer. They'll help back up your computer. They'll help you understand software if you've bought software that you're having problems with. Just give them a call at 419-973-3000. That's 419-973-3000. You can call or text, or you can go online to their website, demarconsulting.com. And DeMar is spelled D-E-M-A-R-E. So it's DeMar Consulting, no dashes or underlines, just demarconsulting.com. Give them a call. You won't be sorry. And our next sponsor is the Wood County Park District. The Wood County Park District is a natural resources conservation agency, and they protect natural spaces, maintain quality of green spaces. They provide engaging programming that teaches people to love and respect nature. They restore wildlife habitats, and they lead outdoor adventures. And some of those adventures coming up pretty soon here. On Friday, March 7th, that's this Friday, they're going to have the Story of the Swamp at Otsego Park, and you go online and you register at wcparks.org. And that story, that's one of the most fascinating stories of our region, is that this used to be the Great Black Swamp, which was just an incredible ecological system that really was unmatched anywhere in the world. They had these huge dark forests, and people who passed through them talked about being unable to see the light of the sun. The woods were so dense. And then, of course, there were marshlands. It was an incredibly rich environment, but obviously it's changed a lot. And to hear that story come out this Friday at Otsego Park, and please pre-register at wcparks.org. Then on Friday, March 22nd, there's an event called Wildflowers and Wildside Beer and Trivia, where people will be at the WW Night Preserve in Perrysburg. We'll be drinking craft beers and trying to answer trivia questions about nature, which should get more interesting as the evening goes on, I think. But that also you need to pre-register for that one at wcparks.org. And then a couple volunteer opportunities on Saturday, March 23rd. They're going to be doing woody plant removal at the Sawyer Quarry Nature Preserve. That's removing invasive species. That's on 26940 Lime City Road, Perrysburg. And to pre-register for volunteer opportunities, you go to wcparks.galaxydigital.com. And another volunteer opportunity, Conservation Volunteer Day at Otsego Park. That will be coming up April 16th. And once again, pre-register wcparks.galaxydigital.com. And then finally, I wanted to mention May 11th is coming up the annual plant sale, which happens at the Wood County Park District headquarters on Mercer Road in Bowling Green. There's no registration, but you can pre-order annuals at wcparks.org/friends. So, and that's where you can buy native plants. So we had just a few weeks ago, we had a show on native species versus invasive species. And here, the Wood County Parks is giving you a chance to do something about that. Plant some native species on your property and help them remove invasive species from their county parks. So that was the Wood County Parks. So, well, that has brought us to 8:35 hour, and Markie Miller is still with us. Thank you very much, Markie, for sticking around. And you can call her. You can talk to her at 866-240-1065. But right now I wanted to talk about something else, and that is that our new governor, Mike DeWine, there was an event in Columbus where he was talking to the press. They had like an annual press luncheon kind of thing. And he went at this event, he went all in on nuclear power. He's all in favor of these bailouts for Davis, Bessie, and Perry that will mean huge increases for you in your utility bill and on your tax bill. And he justified it by making the climate change argument. In fact, he said, if we don't get nukes, we're just going to throw up our hands on climate change, which is an absolutely ridiculous position, because the real answer to climate change is solar, is wind, and geothermal. There's lots of alternatives to nuclear. But so often we're presented by our legislatures, by our representatives, quote unquote, in government with these choices that have a poison pill built into them. Example I always like to use is the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, which was like, oh, we will cover more people, but you've got to keep the private insurance system, and you've got to accept whatever increases in your premiums and your deductibles they give you in order to cover more people. Excuse me. And that was unacceptable. What we needed then, and what we still need, is single-payer universal health care. And of course, I started coughing right on cue there, talking about health care. Excuse me. That's what most countries have, but we were again presented this false choice by our representatives. They said, oh, you've got to accept this or there will be no healthcare reform. And DeWine is doing the same thing. He's saying, oh, you've got to accept nukes or Ohio will do nothing about climate change, which is a totally unacceptable position. And this is, talking about our governmental people being sort of mad with power. This is the kind of attitude that I think led to the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. Do you think that's sort of an accurate statement, Markie?
Yeah, I think so. It seems to be this unwillingness to let go of, I don't know if it's let go of the power that you have, or to make an enemy out of the industry funding that
Mm-hmm.
is involved in our campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's definitely a fair statement.
Yeah, that's something that, the Citizens United law or ruling by the Supreme Court, which I think we're going to have to find another name for Supreme Court, because Supreme isn't really a good adjective to use for a court that basically just gave our democracy over to corporations with this decision.
Mm-hmm.
But I ran for U.S. Senate a few years ago, 2016, and I got 1.7% of the vote. Almost 90,000 people voted for me, and I managed to do that with a budget of $10,000. But Portman, the one who won that election, he spent $7 per vote, which,
Mm-hmm.
compared to I think I spent 8 cents per vote, or
Right.
something like that. And so that sounds over the top, right? $7 for every single vote. And
Yep.
that's crazy. But the Koch brothers, with their private corporation, which is allowed under Citizens United to spend as much as they want,
Mm-hmm.
they spent something like $21 per vote that they got in that election.
Right.
And so just think about that for a minute there. If you were someone who voted for Portman, the Koch brothers spent $21 getting your vote. To me, that's an insane amount of money.
Yeah.
And so it does have these politicians running scared. They care about money and power, and so they're afraid to take on entrenched industries like the nuclear power industry. But the ironic thing is that First Energy is going bankrupt because of Davis-Besse. Dave Westinghouse, one of the largest corporations in the country that had some of the most money, is going bankrupt because of nuclear power. The way capitalism is supposed to work, and here's a green lecturing corporations on how capitalism is supposed to work, but if you have a company like First Energy that makes bad decisions, that makes, mistake after mistake after mistake, the power of the marketplace, that company is supposed to go belly up and get replaced.
Mm-hmm.
That's how capitalism is supposed to work. And back when Davis-Besse was applying for relicensing with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, we fought that, and we had experts come in, and we showed First Energy. We said, you can generate all the power you need with wind and with solar. You can replace Davis-Besse, and it will be cheaper for your corporation because you won't be paying fuel costs and maintenance costs that you have with Davis-Besse, and your corporation will make more money. And they ignored us and pushed through the Davis-Besse relicensing.
We need corporations to have charters again that we can revoke.
Yeah.
once they start to cause harm to the public.
Yeah, I agree. And even following the rules they're supposed to follow, if you have a corporation that makes the bad decisions and loses money,
mm-hmm.
that's also supposed to mean the end of that corporation.
Right, but now they write the rules, so they get to right. They get to follow the rules that they write.
Right, and they're trying right now to take our legislators and literally just give them a blank check with our tax dollars to keep going, despite the fact that at every turn they're making the wrong decisions. It's a sorry day for both democracy and capitalism here in Ohio. It's looking pretty grim right now. But contact DeWine. He's our governor. Contact his office and tell him, get off this nuclear kick. It's not worth it. There's 1,700 jobs now, is the number they're saying at Davis-Besse. But there's over 3,000 jobs at First Solar. And those two energy sources are in competition, solar versus nuclear. And so are we as a state going to spend billions of tax dollars to keep the nuclear going with its 1,700 jobs and allow the solar to lose the competition and costing us, 3,000 jobs at the factory and then tens of thousands of jobs more for installation and maintenance? There's much more economic benefit from solar power than there is from nuclear power. And yet this is where DeWine wants to take your tax dollar and throw it. So what do you think? Do you agree with that assessment? 866-240-1065. That's 866-240-1065. Give us a call and let us know what you think. So, I just had to deal with that. So I think what I'm going to do now is, while you're mulling that over and thinking about what you're going to call in and say on that topic, I think we're going to do our letter from the future. My great-great-granddaughter, Marie I, is living and working on the Kola Peninsula, which is up near the Arctic Circle, because there's a plan to take the nuclear waste that we're generating today and inject it deep into the Earth's mantle, because they're still having a problem with it 200 years from now. We didn't solve this problem, and so they're finally getting around to it. So here's my letter from Marie I. Dear Great-Great-Grandpa, greetings from the year 2299. This was an exciting week at our base on the Kola Peninsula. Our friend Igor came out for a visit. You'll remember he's a member of the Sami people. He brought a drum that he had made from reindeer hide, and he was playing it around a big campfire we had built up in the center of the compound. He taught us a couple of Sami songs and dances, and I don't think I'll ever forget the sight of 1,000 scientists, engineers, and technicians dancing around a bonfire. I was dancing near Igor, and it felt like the vibrations from that drum were going right through me. Unfortunately, Igor is getting ready to travel with the migrating caribou and won't be able to come back for a visit for 9 months. After the dancing and drumming were over, Igor took me for a ride in his reindeer sleigh. We are heading for spring equinox, so the sun is finally starting to show itself again. I'll never forget riding in the pre-dawn light, wrapped in reindeer blankets, and staring out over the frozen ocean with Igor beside me. While he's gone, we'll be able to keep in touch over the net, but it's not the same. Anyway, I've hit a problem in my research. Something in the drilling fluid seems to be killing one of the species of bacteria that lives deep underground. I've got to figure out what and find a solution, or the whole project might be stopped. We can't let that happen. We have to dispose of the nuclear waste your time created if I want my great-great-granddaughters to grow up in a safe world. Please keep doing what you're doing. We have too much nuclear waste to dispose of now. Don't let them create more. Love, Marie I. So it's, always nice to hear from Marie. And if you have questions about the future, about the green future that Marie's living in, you can ask them by asking me, and I will put them in a letter to Marie. She'll open it up and send her answer back into our present, her past. There's a number of ways you can contact us. One is by email. You just send an email to joe@joedemar4agreenfuture.org. That's JOEDEMAREFOR greenfuture.org. And no lines or spaces or dashes, just joe@joedemar4greenfuture.org. You can also call us at 419-973-5841. That's calling or texting. And we are on Facebook at For a Green Future. We have a Twitter account at For a Green Future with the number 1 instead of the letter E, so Future 1. We are available as a podcast. So if you have a friend that you want to tell about the show and they're like, oh, I do not get up at 8 o'clock on Sunday mornings, I'm sorry. We could tell them, just go to iTunes. You can download the podcast. Our podcast host is podomatic.com. That's PODOMATIC.com. And you can sign up for our podcast directly on Podomatic. You can also support us if you are enjoying this program, if you like the kind of information that we're providing. You can now sign up directly to support us on Patreon. I don't know if you've heard of Patreon, but it's a new platform that allows people to directly support mostly it's musicians and artists, but also the occasional talk show host. So just go to Patreon, that's patreon.com, and you can sign up to be a direct, and once a month, basically a donation will come out of your checking account at whatever amount that you want. There's different tiers, different levels of support. I like to recommend the $25 level because that's the dog lovers level. And for every patron we get at the $25 level, we will give a treat to our dog Molly and post a video of that on our YouTube channel, which we also have a YouTube channel, which is For a Green Future. You can search for it, and when we put this show up as a YouTube video every week, then we include extra things in the video portion. So like you might see a graph there or a picture of Markie Miller while she's talking, so you have an idea of who's talking and what's going on. So lots of ways to reach us, and still lots of time, actually. It's 8:48, so we've got 12 minutes left in the show. And, of course, the most direct way to reach us is to call us right now at 866-240-1065. How did you feel when you heard the news that the Lake Erie Bill of Rights had passed? Were you shocked? Were you happy? Were you angry? Give us a call. We'd very much like to talk with you. And so Markie, I guess what's next for Toledoans for Safe Water? What is your organization looking at doing?
Yeah, I think everyone's still so overwhelmed. We're trying to figure that out. But I think, we'll get back together, regroup, and hopefully we can be kind of an advocacy group that people can come to. If you have questions and you want to start with the people who put it on the ballot, by all means, reach out to us. We've also been getting a lot of calls and emails from communities like, around the area of Port Clinton and Ashtabula, and saying we're interested in community rights. We're interested in rights of nature. Can you come talk to us? So, I think that's something we didn't really expect. It's great. And we're looking forward to having those conversations with people. And I want to say we like your organizing model and we want to know more. And that is really what we hoped for. We were so focused on other communities around Lake Erie getting involved, but I think it's great to see other communities realize that it's not just, whatever the environmental problem is that we're working on, but it's the democracy problem.
Yes.
You can plug in almost any issue into the same formula, and it comes down to who has the power, who's making the decisions, who writes the laws. So we're seeing other communities really pick up on that and just fed up with, just being burdened with problems that they have no say in.
Yeah, that's a point we make a lot here on For a Green Future, that a green future is a future with a healthy democracy where the people do have a say in what happens. And so basically you helped prove that point. Now something you did expect, though, and I know you can't go into any kind of detail on this, and so I'm not going to ask, but we'll just let people know that exists, is that after the bill passed, suit was brought to stop it.
Oh yeah, instantly.
Instantly, okay. Yeah.
It was ready and waiting, obviously. And I think that's unfortunate. For one thing, it's confusing to me to say we're afraid of lawsuits, so we're going to sue you first. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But just this absolute fear of the people taking over or challenging you, and it really it's disappointing. It is, for sure. And we expect some challenges because we know this is a new idea and new in its application more so than its theory. But we were looking forward to having those conversations. It would have been nice to have a little time to enjoy it, talk about it, get the law in the books. Right. So it to me it seemed a bit weird to have it come out so soon. But I think that's what it's going to take. Not every law and movement that we have now was accepted immediately. It took lots of different tries. So
right. Now, this isn't the first place in the world, though, that has recognized some rights of nature. Could you talk a little bit about some of the other places where similar laws have passed?
So this was the first in the nation for a body of water.
Okay.
So that's where we're the first. But Tamaqua, Pennsylvania, is a small borough in Pennsylvania. They had a rights of nature law in 2006 because there was fly ash and biosolids being dumped in old coal mines that had been long abandoned, and the community didn't want that affecting their drinking water and being in their environment. And then Ecuador in 2008 passed rights of nature, implemented that into its constitution. And there were, there are cases on the books of successful suits and things that have come about saying if you impede a river's right to flow, you have to go back and you have to fix that. The government had to go in and repair that because it was not only harming the ecosystem, but was increasing the risk of flooding for the community nearby. And then there are similar efforts in Bolivia, Australia with the Great Barrier Reef, in India, in New Zealand. I mean, it's kind of cool to be on the same level with those places now. So we do hope it keeps going, especially in the U.S. I think it would be great to have more examples that we could cite. I know we had people from Florida come to Toledo for the election because they're concerned about what's going on in the Gulf of Mexico. And calls from people in Utah saying, Great Salt Lake here, and we're concerned about things going on there. So we're getting calls from all over, and it's nice to see that other people are seeing a viable solution in this, and it's a way you can get involved that's a little more than just putting pressure on, electing the right people and your elected officials. It's a little more rewarding, I think, to really get your hands involved and, do the work.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it kind of makes the point that, even though we're divided, all our political systems are divided up. We're separate. Toledo's separate from something going on in Florida. Our ecological systems are all connected.
Right.
So the success here ecologically would benefit people in, all in Pennsylvania, in New York, all along the Lake Erie waterway.
Absolutely. And, I think part of what I really like about this too is that we're talking about the focus is always on these man-made systems that we've created, you know,
Mhm.
like our economy, and we're always worried about what's going to happen, you know, and those are absolutely essential things for our society to function, but we created those,
Mhm.
and we tend to put more energy and priority into preserving those how they are as if they were given to us and created versus the natural systems that we need. You know, the lake can live without us, but we can't live without the lake.
Right.
And those systems are not going to be as resilient and flexible to change as you know, the things that we've created.
Well, and it's important to remember that all our created systems, all our economic and political systems
Hmm.
are dependent on those natural systems.
Absolutely.
I mean, without them, everything collapses. You know, you can have bushels of money, but if you haven't got a gallon of clean water, you're going to die of thirst.
Right.
You know, it's just very, yeah. Our focus is often on the wrong systems. We focus on the human systems when the natural systems are actually more important.
Hmm.
Speaking of human systems and things, I did want to mention that this coming March 4th in Bowling Green, there's going to be a hearing, another public hearing on the proposed plastic bag ban that we're having down there. This hearing's at 6:00, and you know, we encourage people to come out in support of the ban. There was one hearing already, and at that hearing, 2/3 of the people spoke in favor of the ban, and 2 people spoke against it. Unfortunately, the press, as it so often does, gave equal weight to the minority view in this case. It's kind of interesting how, speaking of man-made systems, how our press system is so, like in terms of global warming, for example, they often give equal time to the anti-global warming position as they do to the global warming position, when it's the clear consensus among the scientists that yes, there is global warming. It's happening. We are causing it. We need to stop putting carbon in the air. And yet you'll often see paragraph after paragraph from a denier in these articles. And that's kind of what happened in the local media down in Bowling Green. Is almost everyone at that hearing was in favor of the ban. 2 people spoke against it. And yet if you read the coverage, you would think that it was like a 50-50 proposition. And kind of similar to your situation, I mean, most of the Toledoans that voted supported it. And yet, you know, if you looked at the press coverage leading up to it, you would got the impression that there was this huge backlash against it.
Right. Yeah, and you know, I think it was interesting that we were all out at the polls that day, and there were no people handing out literature, which I was grateful for. But it was very unequal, and I think there were a lot of local reporters who did a good job in really trying to understand what we were doing, and did try to reach out to the other side, and weren't getting much of a response. You know, it was frustrating to see that there was a response in some ways, but you know, it's like I hope people understand. You know, and we'll probably never look at a campaign ad the same way again. You know, start vetting those processes. And then we found out that even though they were founded on February 6th, that was the cutoff date for turning in your campaign finances. So now we won't see any of that funding information until April.
Oh.
And they think we'll forget, but we won't. We'll be right on it.
All right. Well, good. Oh, you mentioned actually, to give equal time, that the Blade did a kind of a nice editorial.
Yeah, their editorials, I think, have been very, very positive. Tom Henry's done a really great job in doing both sides, but you know, also being really present with the people that are around and on the ground, and that was us and advocates for Clean Lake Erie. You know, he's very involved.
All right. Well, I think we are just about out of time. So, Markie, thank you once again for coming, and thank you all for listening and sticking with us for this hour. Mick Gonzalez is on the way to do the cheap seats and talk. We're back to sports again. Yeah, give a listen. Support us on Patreon. Tell your friends about our show. Share our podcast links and our YouTube links. And let's spread the word. Let's keep this momentum going. This is Joe DeMar signing off. the sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's